We're going to get going. Thank you, everybody. This is being recorded. My name is Jack Todd. I'm Communications Director with the Colorado Secretary of State's office. With me today are Jena Griswold, Colorado Secretary of State, and Colorado County Clerks Association Executive Director Matt Crane. We're going to first hear from Secretary Griswold, then Mr. Crane, and then we will open it up to questions. So, Secretary, if you would like to take it away, that would be great.
Thanks, Jack. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm proud to be joined today by Matt Crane, Executive Director of the Colorado Clerks Association. Today, just shortly before we all join together, Governor Polis granted clemency to Tina Peters, the disgraced former Mesa County clerk and recorder who was convicted by a jury of her peers for her role in breaching her own voting equipment. We condemn Governor Polis's clemency grant. It is a gross injustice to our elections, election workers, and democracy with far-reaching consequences. It's a dark day for democracy. In 2021, Tina Peters compromised her own voting equipment to try to prove Trump's big lie. My office discovered this and ensured she was caught, removed from direct election oversight, and held accountable for her actions. Tina Peters is a criminal, just like the 1,600 criminals Trump pardoned for engaging in insurrection on January 6th, following a free and fair election. And she was one of the last people facing accountability for her actions of attacking American elections in a Trump-inspired attack that we saw in Mesa County. Trump has spent much of his second term retaliating against the state of Colorado for not releasing Peters, moving Space Command, dismantling the Climate Research Center, clawing back federal money meant to support low-income families, vetoing bipartisan legislation that would have provided safe drinking water to rural Colorado, and denying appeals for disaster funding after wildfires. The governor's decision today will not stop that retaliation. It only validates Trump's basest impulses and emboldens this lawless president. He has learned now just how hard he needs to push and threaten the state of Colorado to get what he wants. Clemency also will embolden the election denial movement across the country and will leave a dark, dangerous imprint on American democracy for years to come. Selling out our state's justice system for Trump is an affront to the rule of law. At a time when the federal justice system is in crisis, the state justice system must work. Trump said earlier this year that the only limit on his power is his own morality. That cannot and must not be true in a democracy. We cannot and we must not give in to Trump's lawlessness or threat tactics. To do so jeopardizes the rule of law and our country. The governor's action also represents a new chapter in Trump's efforts to rewrite history of the 2020 election. Tina Peters, one of the last people in the country facing accountability for attacking American elections, will now be released. A clear message is being sent to those willing to break the law and attack our democracy for the president, that they very likely will not face consequences for their actions. You may hear suggestions that this clemency is simply bringing Tina Peters' punishment in line with the scope of her crimes. What it actually is special treatment. Instead of waiting for Peters to be resentenced in the courts as directed by the Court of Appeals, she will be released from incarceration in the coming weeks. Peters willfully breached her own election equipment and shared information she collected with a network of election deniers who want voters to doubt the results of free and fair elections. Her attack wasn't just on Mesa County's elections or even on the state of Colorado. It was against the very pillar of American democracy. Her actions have been repeatedly used to spread conspiracy theories, amplify falsehoods, and fuel dangerous election lies. This, in turn, has increased the threats to election officials and election infrastructure across our state. Clemency undermines my office's work and the work of election officials across the state to oversee and protect our elections. As for remorse, Peters spent the last 5 years celebrating her actions, basking in her conspiracy-fueled MAGA celebrity. But for our elections, Peters' actions do not and will not ever change the fact that Colorado continues to be a beacon for safe, secure, and accessible elections for eligible voters. For years, Colorado has been a national leader in elections. That was true in 2020 when Trump lost his reelection bid, in 2021 when we discovered Peter's actions, and it was true in 2024 when Trump won the presidency for the second time. Coloradans will have their voices heard in 2026, no matter what Trump or Tina Peters have to say. I appreciate you all covering this, and I appreciate Matt Crane for all of his partnership. I am going to turn it over to Matt. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for making the time to be with us today. The Colorado Clerks Association is furious, disgusted, and deeply disappointed by the governor's decision. We have met with him privately to make our positions unmistakably clear. Tina Peters deserves the accountability imposed through Colorado's judicial system, and the governor should have, at the very least, respected that process and allowed it to fully play out before intervening. This case was thoroughly investigated, prosecuted, and adjudicated through the rule of law. Undermining that process before it fully concludes sends a reckless and dangerous message to the public, to election officials, and to anyone entrusted with safeguarding our democratic institutions. Election officials across Colorado, both Republicans and Democrats alike, have stood up at every turn to tell the truth about our elections, even when facing harassment, intimidation, threats, and relentless political attacks. They have defended the rule of law, protected voters, and continued serving the public despite enormous personal and professional costs. Rather than standing with those public servants and defending one of our nation's most cherished rights, the right to vote, Governor Polis is bending the knee to the same political forces and conspiracy movements that are actively undermining confidence in our democratic institutions. That choice carries consequences far beyond this single case. Tina Peters' actions have made life harder not only for election officials here in Colorado, but make no mistake, for election officials all across the country. Her conduct became a rallying point for election conspiracy movements that fueled hostility and distrust towards the very people responsible for administering free and fair elections. Last year here in Colorado, we had an election office that was firebombed. While the suspect is entitled to the presumption of innocence and the case must proceed through the legal process, public reporting indicates that the individual appeared to be influenced by the same stolen election conspiracy narratives that Tina Peters has helped legitimize. Election officials are not speaking in hypotheticals anymore. These threats, the fear, the escalation, it's all real now. At a time when election officials need strong support, this decision abandons them and supports the attack on the legitimacy of American elections. There's no escaping the significance of this moment. This is now Governor Polis's legacy. He will not be able to run from it nor redefine it later. When given the opportunity to stand firmly for the rule of law, for the integrity of Colorado elections, and for the public servants who defend them, he chose a different path. This decision is shameful. It rewards criminal conduct connected to the attacks on our election system, weakens confidence in accountability, and undermines the very institutions that protect the freedom to vote. Colorado voters deserve leaders who defend our democracy, who defend the truth, not leaders who legitimize efforts to damage it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Secretary Griswold. Okay, we're going to open it up for some questions. If you can, please remember to introduce yourself and your outlet before you ask them. I do not see a way for folks to raise their hands, but if you can do that, if you figure out how and would like to do that, please do. Otherwise, we will let you jump in. Thank you. Nick, we'll go for you. Nick asks, did the governor call either of you to let you know about this decision beforehand? Nick with the New York Times.
Nick, thank you for the question. I was called by the governor approximately an hour or 45 minutes before this became public. Prior to that, I had not spoken with the governor about this topic. We had reached out repeatedly asking for time to meet on the matter, but unfortunately we're not able to meet. My staff did speak with his staff in the past about this topic.
And I can say too that the governor did call the president of our association, Weld County Clerk and Recorder Carly Coppis, about the same time that Secretary Griswold heard from him. We share the secretary's dismay why we didn't find out sooner. Obviously, the governor felt it was important to protect his legacy and meet with the media before talking to the stakeholders who this decision directly impacts, and that's another thing that we're incredibly disappointed in.
Was he receptive or understanding to your concerns when talking to him today? Is a follow-up from Nick.
I would just say the conversation was very brief, and there was not a lot of back and forth.
And that's the same as Clerk Coppis told me as well.
Matt, a question for you from Carrie Levine. What are you hearing from election officials and what are their concerns?
Well, Carrie, that's a great question. There's a lot of concern for election officials here in Colorado, and we're starting to hear from election officials across the country that this signals that it's open season on our elections and election officials. When you have somebody who has shown no remorse, no real remorse, and they're, as Secretary Griswold said, granted these special circumstances, that's incredibly concerning that it just puts a bigger target on elections and the backs of election officials.
Nothing else coming at this time. Oh, we have one coming.
This is Nia Bender from KOA. So do you feel as though this may end up hurting the governor when it comes to future campaigns for him later down the road?
Oh, I can't speculate on the politics, Nia. I think it's a bad decision for the state of Colorado, for the country, and for our democracy, and that's what I'm really focused on here today.
Understood.
Yeah, Nia, I agree. I would just say I don't give a hill of beans about the governor's political future. I care about election officials, the men and women who have to carry out these duties every day here in Colorado. And this is a severe letdown and a breaking of faith with our community.
All right. Thank you so much.
Matt Cohen with Democracy Docket asks if Governor Polis said if he spoke with President Trump at all about his decision.
I don't have any awareness of that.
I don't either.
Marshall from CNN, Marshall Cohen. Did you see the statement Peters sent to Polis? She said, I made a mistake 4 years ago. I misled the Secretary of State when allowing a person to gain access to county voting equipment. That was wrong. Going forward, I will make sure that my actions always follow the law. Matt or Marshall would like your response.
Matt, do you want to
Well,
take it away?
I keep hoping that there's more to it, that she's showed more contrition than that, because if that's what he's using as a reason to commute her sentence, that's laughable. There's no real contrition there. And she did a lot more. She was convicted of a lot more than just not following orders from the Secretary of State's office. Right? She undermined her community in Mesa County. She put her staff members in a terrible position. She allowed her software, her election software, to get out in the wild where bad actors can figure out a way, if they get physical access to these components, to undermine those components and do nefarious things. Her actions cost the taxpayers of Mesa County well over $1 million. So to me, if that's what the governor went off, it makes this even worse.
I agree. Matt raises a very good point that there was, again, multiple charges, and it was more than just misleading my office. I do not think, for what I know, including the statement you just referenced, I do not think that Peters is remorseful. If she was, she would stop using that incident to push out conspiracies and lies. I think it's important to remember that she really celebrated the fame that this brought her in MAGA circles, and I believe she will continue to do so. So I do not think that there is honest remorse from what I am aware of.
Matt, a question for you from Tom Hess at Colorado Public Radio. CCCA spends a lot of energy on safety and security. Should clerks start planning for what to do if Peter shows up at one of their offices ahead of the midterms?
Well, look, I mean, I don't want to make this just about Tina. Since 2020 and standing up and telling the truth that the election wasn't stolen and that our elections here are elections that people can rely on. And there's no Kraken running in our voting system. We don't have ghost voters running around our voter registration rolls. Clerks have been intimidated. We've had clerks have their lives threatened. We had a clerk who was pregnant in 2022 have her unborn child threatened. These are all real. And again, we had an office in Colorado firebombs last year. So whether it's Tina or somebody else who's spreading false rumors and inciting people to do violent things, unfortunately, we have to spend a lot of time preparing for that. And this will, we're worried that things will keep escalating because the way that bad information can be amplified on social media and people are so stuck in their information vacuums that they don't know what's real and what's not. And so, we are trying to figure out a way to push back in the public square on these false narratives while at the same time protecting our people because so many people have been brainwashed, quite frankly, by the president and by others with these lies about our elections.
And
Okay.
I would just say that just to add on, the threat environment is absolutely real. It is fueled by lies and conspiracies like Tina Peters has pushed out. There is no person who has done more harm to our elections in Colorado than Tina Peters. We've been so happy to partner with the clerks to release millions of dollars to help them upgrade their security. I've been happy to partner with the legislature, the clerks, to make it a crime to threaten election officials and county clerks or dox them. But it is still a frightening atmosphere at times. And we've actually seen a 40% turnover in elected county clerks since 2020, when the threat environment really started to spike. We are always there to support the clerks, but I think it just underlines how hard these jobs are. And when you're doing your job in hours and hours, hundreds of hours of your life, of your days, and you're doing the work to protect our elections, to see someone who has, from our point of view, shown no remorse, who has been and was a tremendous threat to our elections, get this type of special treatment, I think it's really demoralizing to election officials. And what I hope is that election officials see the bigger picture, that their work is more important than ever, that we have to lean into protecting our democracy. So much is on the line. And I'm very hopeful that election officials will stay in their positions and stay protecting democracy for Colorado voters.
Okay, we will give the last question of the day to Yvonne at The Atlantic. What message does this send to state and local prosecutors who pursued the Tina Peters case? And what message does this send the people of Mesa County?
Matt, do you want to go first?
Well, I would just say that, obviously I'm not a prosecutor, but I would say this would be completely demoralizing. We have our legal system and our legal processes for a reason. That system was working through the appeals court. There were still other options, as I understand it, for Tina to appeal to the state Supreme Court. Justice Barrett had not had a chance to re-examine the sentencing. There were still things to happen through the legal process here. And to me, this just completely undermines it because, it's been apparent for a long time that the governor has wanted to let Tina out of jail. It's confusing to a great many people. We don't really understand why. But if I were a prosecutor, if I were, District Attorney Rubenstein, I'd be incredibly frustrated right now because they put a lot of time and effort in. She was convicted by a jury of her peers in her home county where she lives, and she was held to account for her crimes. And so now the governor parachuting in to bend the knee to the president just makes no sense.
It sets a horrible precedent for Colorado and other states. It's a clear message that those willing to break the law and attack our democracy for the president may not face any type of consequences for their actions. Tina Peters did serve time. She did. But Trump has used the pardon power to pardon those willing to attack American democracy in a very scary way to our democratic institutions. Selling out our state justice system for Donald Trump or because of his retaliation is an affront to our state and the rule of law. And I think it sends a very bad message, not just to prosecutors, not just to election officials, but the entire American public, that if Trump pushes hard enough, there may be someone willing to bend. And as Americans who respect the Constitution and our democracy, this is not the time to bend. This is the time to stand strong.
Thank you so much to everyone for being here. Thank you, Secretary Griswold. Thank you, Matt Crane. We really appreciate everybody's time, especially on short notice. And please let me know if you have follow-ups. You should all know how to get in touch with me. Thanks all.